I heard the zipper at 3:47 a.m. Not the loud, clumsy kind. The slow, careful kind. The kind someone pulls when they think you're deep asleep and they don't want to wake you or face you. I didn't move. Didn't even twitch. Just lay there with my back to her, eyes wide open, staring into the dark, listening to her stuff lingerie into a suitcase she told me last week we'd used together in October. Paris, she said. She wanted to see the Eiffel Tower light up at night with me. Said it like she meant it. That was before I found the receipt. Not the obvious kind, like a hotel bill or a crumpled note in her purse. No. It was a printout from her job's travel coordinator, left on the printer tray next to my old tax documents. It said, Romantic Oceanfront Getaway Package. Guest, Elias G. I read it 10 times. My chest got tight. My face got hot. But I didn't scream. I just folded it back up and slid it under my sock drawer like it would disappear. But it didn't disappear. It just kept eating away at me every time she kissed me on the forehead or asked if I needed anything from the store. And now, at 3:47 a.m., I was listening to her slip into her favorite coat, the red one I gave her 2 Christmases ago, to go disappear for real. I kept my breathing slow. Even. I heard her shoes in the hallway. Then silence. Then the front door clicking shut. And still I didn't move. Because I'd already done something hours earlier that she didn't know about. I sent everything to the internal security department at her company. Every message. Every screenshot. Every timestamp of her wellness retreat. Lie. I didn't yell. I didn't confront. I didn't even cry. I reported her. Not as a husband. As a silent whistleblower with access to the truth. So while she was on her way to sip champagne with Elias, giggling about how dumb and spineless I was, her company was preparing a formal response. HR was CC'd. Legal, too. The security team had flagged her pass. Cameras were reviewed. A badge deactivation was scheduled. She thought I was bluffing. She thought she was getting away. And I thought I'd break. But I didn't. I just listened to the zipper and waited for the fallout. I didn't go to work that morning. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of instant coffee I didn't even drink, watching the second hand twitch on the wall clock. The silence in the house was suffocating. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. That red coat she wore held more betrayal in it than I knew how to process. I wasn't even mad anymore. Just used. Like an old key to a door she never planned on locking again. I knew exactly where she went. I had the name of the resort, not because she told me, but because I checked the confirmation email she accidentally left open weeks ago. It was tucked away in a work retreat folder, like that made it somehow cleaner. Smarter. She didn't think I'd look. She didn't think I was capable of putting anything together. And for a while, maybe I wasn't. But something in me changed the moment she shut that front door. I called the resort before the sun came up. Used a fake voice. Said I was confirming a surprise delivery for a couple staying there. The desk clerk cheerfully confirmed the reservation. Room 408. Check-in under Elias Gordon. 2 guests. Oh, they're already enjoying the beach, she chirped. Lovely couple. My stomach turned. Lovely couple. That's what we used to be called. I booked the next available one-way ticket. Didn't even pack a bag. Just grabbed my phone, her old DSLR camera, and a USB drive I'd prepared the night before with everything I had: emails, photos, call logs. Part of me still thought maybe I was wrong, that I was going too far. But that part was shrinking fast. When I arrived at the hotel, I didn't walk up to the front desk. I walked straight to the side entrance near the beach access, the one I'd seen on Google Maps, and waited. The sun was setting. The ocean wind carried that sickly sweet scent of fake freedom and fresh cocktails. And then I saw them, walking hand in hand, barefoot, her dress blowing against her legs like she was in a perfume ad. Elias wore a smug, relaxed look, like he'd earned her, like this was always meant to happen. She leaned into him, laughing, clutching his arm like it was the safest place in the world. My heart didn't even race. Instead, I lifted the camera. Clicked. Clicked again. Zoomed in. Got the smiles. The touch. The kiss. The lie. Then I stepped back inside the lobby, past the guests sipping wine, past the staff who smiled at me without knowing they were part of a story I didn't ask to be in. I walked up to the front desk and asked for the manager. I introduced myself by my real name. Then I handed over the USB. This woman lied to her employer about this trip, I said. She used corporate resources, claimed to be on a professional retreat, and booked this stay under false pretenses. Your hotel's name is now part of the report being sent to her company's internal investigations team. The manager blinked, startled. Sir, I'm not sure, oh. You will be, I said, calm but deliberate. Check your email in 10 minutes. Everything's been sent to corporate already. And if they're smart, they'll pull the security footage too. I left before he could respond. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted impact. By the time Presley and Elias returned to the lobby, their key cards were deactivated. The system was already pinging alerts flagged by her company's internal security. She didn't know it yet, but her face, glowing with stolen joy, would be reviewed in a boardroom next week with words like misconduct and fraudulent use of company funds attached to it. She thought I was asleep. She thought I was weak. She thought I was bluffing. But she never thought the front desk would be waiting for her with questions she couldn't lie her way out of. Presley's greatest strength, the one that always made people fall for her, was how quickly she could take control of a moment. I've seen her talk her way out of parking tickets, charm flight attendants into upgrades, even flip a room full of angry clients into believers with nothing but that velvet voice and a well-timed laugh. But charm doesn't mean much when you're standing in front of a hotel manager who just got an email titled, "Security and Ethics Violation. Urgent Review Required." I waited across the street, behind the shaded windows of a coffee shop that smelled like burned espresso and bleach. From my seat, I had a clear view of the hotel's wide glass entrance. I watched her and Elias walk in, their shoulders brushing, him whispering something into her ear that made her tilt her head back in laughter. She had no clue. Not yet. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. That's when it happened. A staff member stepped out from behind the check-in counter, not the same girl from earlier. This one looked older, stiff posture, earpiece. She walked straight up to them. I saw Presley's body shift, instinctively straightening her spine. Elias, still smiling, leaned in as if it was something minor. And then I saw it, the moment her world hiccuped. The woman pointed toward the manager's office. Presley looked confused, then defensive, then, for a second, genuinely afraid. Her hand went at her chest like she couldn't breathe right. Elias's expression changed fast. He looked around like he was trying to figure out who had just flipped the script. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly what they were being told, because I wrote it. In the email I sent to her company's internal security team and CC'd to the hotel, I laid it all out. The false itinerary sheet submitted to HR, the expense reimbursements flagged as leadership retreat, and the digital trail linking her to Elias's reservation. I attached calendar invites, photos, screenshots from her secret conversations she thought I'd never find. I even included a folder named Contingency External Review for their legal department, in case they wanted to take it further. The hotel? They had a reputation to protect. Once they realized they were being implicated in potential misuse of corporate resources, they didn't hesitate to cooperate. That's how I knew their access cards were canceled the moment I left the lobby earlier that day. And now, Presley's mouth was moving fast, too fast. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used on me whenever she wanted to rewrite reality just enough to make it feel like the truth. But the woman in the earpiece didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly, handed them each a printed document, and gestured toward the elevators. They didn't go up. They went down. Back to the lobby. Back to the real world. I saw Elias shove his hands in his pockets as they exited the building. Presley was on her phone, likely calling someone. Maybe HR, maybe me. I didn't answer. I just watched her pace in circles, furious, then devastated, then confused. Elias said something to her, and she turned on him. He flinched, actually flinched, like this was somehow his fault. She walked away from him. He didn't follow. Presley's power had always come from control, of perception, of people, of timing. But she couldn't spin this. Not this time. She didn't know that every lie she told had already been verified against her company's badge logs. That I had sent exact timestamps from our home's Wi-Fi showing when she uploaded fake wellness check-in videos to her team's group chat. Videos she pre-recorded in our guest room, pretending she was in Sedona, not Miami. She had no idea that by the time she landed, her access to every internal system would be frozen. That her next video call with HR would be accompanied by 2 compliance officers and a statement ready for her signature. I stood up, left the coffee shop, and walked the opposite way down the beach road. I didn't need to see the rest. Presley once told me that I was too soft to ever take revenge. And maybe she was right. This wasn't revenge. It was a reset. A brutal, honest reset. Presley didn't fly home with Elias. He left the hotel alone, probably thinking this whole thing was just an overreaction, that maybe someone made a clerical error or some jealous coworker tipped off HR. I watched him call a rideshare, shuffle his duffel bag into the trunk, and drive off like he still had a job waiting for him Monday morning. I knew better. The company's internal audit team already had his name on a list titled Associated Personnel Flag for Conduct Review. He wouldn't get a warning. He'd get a silence so cold, so corporate, it would rattle him for months. Presley stayed behind. Maybe she was trying to talk her way into a second chance, or maybe she just wasn't ready to face what came next. I imagined her sitting in the hotel lobby, alone now, scrolling through her phone for any signs of mercy. No calls from me, no updates from work, just the growing realization that everything she thought she had under control was crumbling in real time. Meanwhile, I was already home. I took the red-eye back while she slept off her unraveling weekend in a sterile hotel bed that wasn't meant for lies to bloom in the daylight. The morning she was supposed to return, I set the house exactly how she left it. Coffee maker ready. Shoes by the door. Couch blanket folded. The kind of setup that looks like love still lives there. I sat at the kitchen table with the blinds drawn and her tablet in front of me, scrolling through emails that were still syncing. She hadn't logged out. That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't think she needed to. But one message caught my eye. It was timestamped 2:13 a.m., the night she tried to sneak out. Sent to her friend Chelsea, the one who always encouraged her to be unapologetically wild. This weekend is for me. He'll be fine. I think he suspects, but what's he really going to do? Sulk and make tea. I actually laughed. Sulk and make tea. She wasn't wrong. I've been doing that for years. I don't throw plates. I don't storm out. I process. Quietly. Painfully. Like a coward, I guess. Or maybe just a guy who never imagined he'd have to weaponize the truth just to be heard. But this time was different. Because while she was still waiting to check in for her return flight, I sent a second package. This one wasn't for her employer. It was for her mother. And her father. And her sister, the one she always pretended to be better than. Inside the envelope was a printed collection of the screenshots, the receipts, and one photo I took through the hotel window, her standing in a robe on the balcony, laughing with a champagne glass in her hand, Elias shirtless behind her. I didn't do it to hurt her family. I did it because I was tired of protecting someone who only used my silence as permission. That afternoon, I got a call. Unknown number. I answered. It was her. She didn't sound angry. Not yet. Just confused. Tired. Corbin, can we talk? I stayed silent. I don't know what you're hearing, but this isn't what it looks like. I didn't cheat on you. It wasn't romantic. I nearly choked. It wasn't romantic? You kissed him in public. That was a stupid moment, okay? A stupid lapse. I need to explain. No, I said. You need to understand that for once. I didn't just sulk and make tea. Silence. Then, what did you do? I told the truth, I said. To the people you lied to. To the company that paid for your retreat. To your parents. And now I'm telling you. Corbin, please. I don't want an apology. I want peace. She began to cry. I'd heard it before. It used to shatter me. This time, I just listened. Where are you? She asked. I didn't answer. She didn't need to know that anymore. That night, I turned off my phone and opened the window. The air smelled like rain. My suitcase sat by the door. I had no plan. Just the next step, which, for once, didn't involve following her. She flew home. But the version of me she expected to come back to never did. Presley arrived just after 6:30 p.m. I knew that not because she told me, but because I saw the alert from the smart doorbell, the same one she made fun of when I first installed it, said it was paranoid tech nonsense. The video showed her dragging her suitcase up the porch steps, her face hidden behind sunglasses, posture stiff like she wasn't sure what version of home she'd be walking into. She stood at the door for a moment, probably waiting for me to open it. I didn't. The app let me watch in silence as she hesitated, then finally pulled out her key. She unlocked the door, walked in, and immediately stopped. I had stripped it bare of emotion. The house, I mean. All the framed photos of us, gone. Her books, the scented candles she claimed calmed her, the framed quote she once hung above our bed that read, "Love grows here," all gone. What remained was a clean, cold shell of a life we once shared. I left just enough to make her feel the absence. A single chair at the kitchen table, her keys placed exactly in the center of the island, and an envelope with her name written in my careful handwriting. She didn't call out for me. Not this time. She opened the envelope. Inside was a printed document with two simple items. A letter of withdrawal from our joint checking account, signed by both of us months ago, something she had forgotten we even signed, giving either of us access to move funds in case of emergency. I moved my half 2 days ago. She wouldn't find a penny more than what she came into the marriage with. I noticed that the lease on the house was ending in 30 days. I'd already spoken to the landlord. The paperwork was in motion. Her name was never on it to begin with. I paid the deposit. She picked the curtains. Only one of those things holds legal weight. The rest of the house was quiet, except for the dull hum of the fridge. That's when she started calling me. First, my name, softly, like maybe I was hiding in the bedroom, sulking. Then louder, sharper, like she was trying to summon control back into her voice. But it echoed hollow against the walls. Her voice didn't carry the way it used to in that space. I was across town by then, sitting in a cheap rental suite with a view of a parking lot and a box of leftover noodles beside me. My phone buzzed with her messages, each one shorter than the last. We need to talk. Why is the house like this? Corbin. Seriously, this isn't funny. Where are you? I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled out the notebook I started filling the week before she left. I called it the inventory, a list of every time she made me feel like a shadow in my own marriage. Each page held a moment, a phrase, a dismissive glance, a joke she made at my expense that I laughed along with just to keep the peace. I wasn't collecting proof to use against her. I was building the map I needed to finally find my way out. Because the truth is, Presley didn't just betray me in Miami. She'd been slowly erasing me for years. With every time she brushed off my concerns, every dinner where she talked about Elias like he was a genius and I was just Corbin, the safe bet. Every time she stayed late at work and came home smelling like foreign cologne and excuses. This weekend didn't start the destruction. It only made it impossible to deny. Back at the house, she must have realized I wasn't coming back. That's when she sent the photo. It was a picture of our wedding rings, hers placed next to mine on the kitchen counter, under a beam of the fading evening sun. I didn't mean for this to happen, she wrote. I made a mistake. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then I set the phone down. Because here's the thing. Some mistakes break glass. Others rot wood. But what she did, it hollowed out the walls while I was still living inside them. And now I'm walking out. No rage. No last words. Just a silence loud enough to finally be heard. 2 days after she returned, Presley sent me a voice memo. I didn't open it. I stared at the waveform, 46 seconds long, just watching the little play button blink like it was daring me to care again. But I already knew what was in it. The tone, the tremble, the carefully rehearsed words she probably recorded 5 times before deciding it sounded real enough. That was her gift, always, making anything sound like love, even if it was poison with a sugar coating. I'd moved into a long-stay rental on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. A converted garage with one window, a creaky bed, and a coffee pot that had seen better decades. But it was mine. The silence wasn't just emptiness, it was clarity. I could hear my own thoughts for the first time in what felt like years, and they weren't all screaming. Just whispering. Keep going. Presley started leaving notes at the front desk of the building. Not texts. Not emails. Handwritten notes, like we were teenagers again. The second one was the first I actually read. You've made your point. Can we please talk like adults? I never meant for it to go this far. That line, I never meant for it to go this far, nearly made me laugh out loud. That's what you say when you send an awkward meme to the wrong group chat. Not when you fly across the country and spend 3 nights in a hotel with a man your husband didn't even know you liked. She didn't want to fix us. She wanted to fix the optics. Her job was on the line. Her parents had stopped returning her calls after I sent them the truth. Elias had been quietly terminated, his company profile scrubbed. It wasn't just her marriage that was crumbling. It was the whole fantasy she built around being untouchable. Then came the surprise visit. She showed up outside the building. I saw her from the upstairs window, standing next to her car, arms folded like she had any right to be angry. I didn't open the door. I watched. I watched her stare at the building, then glance at her phone, then look up again, as if she could feel me watching her. She stood there for almost 10 minutes before finally turning to leave. But before she did, she slid another note under the door. You can't just disappear. I know I hurt you, but walking away like this, it's cruel. That word. Cruel. As if I had twisted the knife she had already driven in. As if my silence was worse than her affair. She was right about one thing. I did disappear. But not to punish her. to find out what parts of me were still alive after years of shrinking to fit her version of a husband. And what I discovered, I didn't want to return to the version of myself who tolerated everything just to avoid conflict. I didn't want to be the man who nodded and swallowed pain like it was breakfast. I didn't want to be the afterthought to her ambition. So I started packing the rest of my life into boxes, not the material stuff, but the things she never noticed I kept. My grandfather's pocket watch. The letters my dad wrote me before he passed. The journals she used to mock. The playlist I made for our anniversary that she never listened to. They were pieces of me that I buried just to keep our life moving smoothly. Now I was reclaiming them. The final step was changing my number. No big announcement. No dramatic send-off. Just a quiet deletion, a digital version of turning off the lights. When I handed the old SIM card to the clerk at the phone shop, he asked, "Want to back anything up?" I shook my head. "No. Let it go." He nodded, not understanding, but somehow still getting it. Presley might still be trying to rewrite the ending, might still be telling her friends that I overreacted or that I misunderstood what happened. Maybe she's crafting some new version of the story where we grew apart and mutually drifted. That's fine. Let her write whatever makes the silence easier for her to sit in. But I know the truth. I didn't disappear. I woke up. And when I did, I realized she was never really beside me to begin with. It took 2 weeks of silence before Presley finally stopped trying to reach me. No more notes, no more calls from strange numbers, no mutual friends reaching out on her behalf. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't land like a relief, but like the echo of something long dead. That's when I knew she got it. That whatever she was still holding on to, her version of events, her desperate need for damage control, it had finally slipped through her fingers. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just rebuilding. I was documenting. I had started writing. Not journaling. Writing. Pages and pages of everything she'd erased over the years. Not just the affair, but the way she made me doubt my memory during arguments. How she turned her voice into a scalpel when she didn't get her way. How she smiled at me in public and ignored me in private. I wrote it all. And when I was done, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a witness. And being a witness meant I could finally leave the courtroom in my head where she'd been both judge and defense. One night, I got an email from her sister out of nowhere. Subject line, "She's not okay." I almost deleted it. But I clicked. It was short. Just a paragraph. "She's falling apart, Corbin." I'm not defending her. What she did was disgusting. But I've never seen her like this. She won't eat. She's not going to work. She keeps replaying that voicemail from you over and over, the one where you said you were done protecting her. It's like she just now realized you meant it. It hit me weirdly. Not like triumph. Not even like closure. Just sadness. Not for her. But for the waste. For the fact that it took losing everything for her to even begin facing herself. I never replied. Because I had somewhere else to be. That week, I met with a former coworker, Nadine. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but she'd always been kind to me. Never flirty, never intrusive. Just present. The kind of person you don't realize you need until everyone else stops pretending. She asked me how I was doing. And for the first time, I didn't lie. We talked for hours. About everything. Life. Silence. The strange loneliness of healing. She didn't look at me like I was broken. She didn't treat me like some wounded bird who needed fixing. She just listened. And that night, when I went back to my rental, I didn't feel hollow. I felt human. But the real turning point came days later. Presley sent one final email. I knew it would come eventually. The tone was different. No manipulation. No theatrics. Just stripped down, tired honesty. I don't expect you to read this. And I definitely don't expect forgiveness. But I need to say this to someone, even if you delete it after the first sentence. I lost you long before Miami. I think I always knew it was happening, and I just didn't want to be the one to admit it. I didn't want to look in the mirror and see the person who took a good man and made him feel small. You were good, Corbin. You were always good. And I mistook your quiet for weakness when it was really strength I didn't understand. I thought I could cheat the consequences. I thought love was something I could replace. But I can't. And I won't find it again, not like the version of it you gave me. There was no ask at the end. No plea. No manipulative twist. And maybe that's why I finally cried. Not because I missed her, but because, for the first time, the truth came out of her mouth instead of mine. And even though it changed nothing, it felt like justice. Not revenge. Not redemption. Just the truth, spoken too late to save anything. That night, I went to the ocean. Not some dramatic symbol, just the nearest coast I could drive to. I stood barefoot in the sand and let the waves come close enough to remind me that time keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. I thought about who I used to be, and I let him go, too. 3 months passed. No explosions. No confrontations. No dramatic send-offs in the rain. Just time slow and steady, doing what it does best. Healing in places I didn't even know were wounded. Presley disappeared from my orbit completely. Whether out of shame or acceptance, I'll never know. Her final email was the last ripple, and after that, the water went still. I never responded. Not because I wanted to punish her, I just didn't have anything left to say. And that was its own kind of peace. I moved out of the rental. Found a modest place in a sleepy neighborhood tucked behind a line of old oak trees. The kind of area where neighbors still wave and the mail arrives on time. Nothing flashy. Just quiet. And real. I didn't bring much, a few books, a lamp, the photos that still made me smile, but I didn't need much. I wasn't trying to rebuild the life I had before. I was building something new, something entirely mine. I started writing full-time. Not for work. For me. Essays, short stories, even one piece that got published in a small literary journal. The editor said it ached in all the right places. I didn't tell him that every sentence was rooted in the ashes of a life I once begged to keep. And then there was Nadine. What started as casual conversations turned into something more, but gently, patiently, without pressure. She never asked about Presley. She never pried. She just made space for me to show up as I was, even when that meant awkward silences or stories that still ended in sighs. One evening, we were walking back from a bookstore when she stopped, looked at me, and said, "You know, you're not broken." I looked down at my shoes, half laughing, unsure how to respond. "I don't mean you're healed," she added. "I mean you're not broken. You were just misused. You trusted someone who didn't know what to do with something real." That stuck with me. More than anything Presley ever said. More than any apology. Because that was it, the truth I'd never allowed myself to speak out loud. I wasn't weak. I wasn't foolish. I loved someone with my whole heart. And she mishandled it. But that didn't make my heart any less worthy. I wake up now without dread. I make my own coffee. I read in the morning sun that spills across my floor. I talk to people who look me in the eye. And I go to sleep knowing that I chose myself, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding that loyalty should never be given to someone who mistakes it for a leash. Presley will always be a part of my story. But she is not the end of it. Not even close. Because the man she once overlooked, the quiet one, the safe bet, the one who sulked and made tea, he's gone. And in his place is someone better. Someone free.